All right, when we bring all of our expectations down just a half a notch. All right, let's start. Hey, welcome to week 3 of this series. What's it called? Uncertain. We're talking about faith and doubt. Can you believe that it's already week 4 of the new year? What week are you guys in school? Same thing? Like 5 or 6 or 7? Dang, dude, it goes fast. It goes real fast. Can you believe it? All right. Thought I'd start tonight with this. I haven't talked a lot to you guys about how I started in youth ministry. So I thought I'd tell you a little story, and that'll get us into our topic for tonight, okay? Here we go. I got out of Indiana Wesleyan University, Marion, Indiana. That's right. In 2014, I studied to be a pastor there. And I really didn't have any idea what I was doing. Like, I thought I heard from God. Like, I'd showed up in some places like this, like you guys were. Never heard God's voice, never knew what he sounded like. Always thought, man, people talk about hearing from God. I don't know what that means. And all of a sudden, one day, it just like happened. And I didn't really know what to do with it, but I thought, man, I think I'm supposed to go to school to be a pastor. But I have no idea what I'm supposed to do after that. So I went to Indiana Wesleyan, trying to figure it out, trying to figure out what God's call in my life was. And when I finished there with my degree, any guesses on what I did first? First thing I did, I graduated from school with a degree to be a pastor. What did I do first? Ready? Go. Got married. I did get married. You're right. But what did I do? What was my first job? McDonald's? McDonald's ministry. That's a good guess. That's not it. It was a job in the church. Any other guesses? Resident. Resident of what? Resident custodian? Okay, you're all wrong. I'm just going to tell you, okay? You may think youth ministry, because I'm telling you a story about youth ministry, but you'd be wrong. My first job was a resident pastor. You're right. Like Hannah, Jared, Noah, Ethan, all those before, like Paul, my boy Ian, Riley, Ryan, Josie, Madison, right? You've seen all these people around. But instead of being in youth ministry or in worship, I actually served very old people in our church. That was my job, okay? The church that I was at was a lot different than Ransom. There weren't a lot of young people. There weren't a lot of students, but there were a lot of old people. And I learned a lot. I would go visit these people in their homes and in the hospitals and stuff, and I was supposed to minister to them and care for them, but really they just kind of did that for me, and pretended I was their pastor. They really loved me well. But honestly, it was kind of sad sometimes. Does anybody get sad around old people? I do. Maybe I'm the only one, okay? It was really slow moving, no puns here, but it was just slow. There wasn't a lot of energy and fun to it. It was just a lot of thoughtful stuff and sitting with people and trying to pray with them. And I really like things that are big and loud and fast and impressive, okay? I love loud parties. Can I get an amen from anybody in here? Let's go, dude. That's why my boy Aiden, where's Aiden at? Time for our weekly scream, Aiden. Where's it at? Okay. So, yeah. Aiden, at the same time as he's stressing me out, he's also getting me hyped, okay? So, I appreciate him. So, sometimes loving these big, loud, fast parties is a good thing. Sometimes it's a character flaw. Because of my wiring to be loud, fast, obnoxious, and this job being very slow, carefully thought out, lots of time spent in it, the job honestly just didn't seem like a very good fit for me. Okay, I learned a lot and God did a lot in that season, but it wasn't really a good fit. So obviously after you serve all the elderly people in your congregation and your residency is done, your first full-time job in ministry should be what? Youth ministry, right. You go from really old people to really young people, and my first year in youth ministry was wild, all right? Nobody was coming to the youth group. Our church was way smaller than Ransom. There were probably only 300 people total, and the youth group did not exist. There was nothing. And my job was to come in and get it started and somehow try to teach students and reach students, and this was the whole thing, okay? And when I started, we had middle school in the morning on Sunday and high school at its own time in the afternoon. And for the first year, we maybe averaged 5 students. Maybe. I'm not playing. So imagine you come here to youth group, all right, and it's you, 4 other students, and maybe 2 or 3 leaders, and that's it, okay? That's it for the whole year. It was awkward, okay? And our small groups were split by gender because we thought we needed to do that back then. And the two guys that would come, and there was only ever two, both hated each other, and they both didn't like Jesus either, but their parents made them come. So that was the small group that I got to lead. And you guys think that your small groups are awkward, but you don't know nothing about awkward, okay? That is awkward. Two kids that don't want to be around each other, and their parents are making them come, okay? It was brutal, all right? But God was teaching me so much, and we kept working really hard, and we kept trying to develop relationships with students. We kept preaching God's word, and all of the sudden, this ministry blows up, okay? God has a plan for us, and it's clear that all of a sudden these students are coming. They're encountering Jesus. They're growing in their faith. All of a sudden, our youth group was so big that we literally didn't fit in the church. I mean, 100 students, 30 leaders in a room this big doing everything. We're doing small groups, we're doing games, we're doing preaching, we're doing it all, okay? We outgrew the church. One night we had almost 200 students, 50 leaders, tons of students encountering Jesus. It was crazy, and it happened seemingly overnight. It was a great move of God, one that was super cool to see. But it came with some challenges too. I mean, we literally didn't fit in the building anymore, but God blessed us. It was cool to see, but it was challenging. Okay, so why do I tell you those stories? The story about me not fitting in that first church or that first job and us getting so big we literally didn't fit in the building. I'd love to answer, but I want to start tonight instead with a question. Have you ever felt like you just didn't fit or like you just didn't fit in? I mean, for me, right, in that very first job that I had, my personality didn't fit the church, and it didn't really fit the role at all. In the second story, our group literally didn't fit in the building. When things don't fit, it's awkward. It's uncomfortable. You ever tried to fit into shoes that were too small? You come home and your feet hurt, okay? It's awkward. There are challenges inside of us when we feel like we just don't fit. Can you relate? You ever been in a place where you feel like you just don't fit or you just don't fit in? I think that we all feel like that. I think we've all been there. Maybe we're not there all the time, but we've definitely felt like we didn't fit in with certain groups in certain places at certain times. So, if you're having a hard time figuring out where you felt like that, or maybe you know exactly what I'm talking about and you're like, yeah, preach. I know exactly what it's like to not fit in. I want you to check out this video where some of our students wrestle through this question of fit and belonging and some of the doubts that they've had about that subject. So check this out right here.
All right, guys, welcome. We're in week 3 this week of our series called Uncertain, and it's all about faith and doubt. And in this week, we're talking all about belonging, our fit in the church and our fit with different groups. So I'm so excited that you guys are here. I'm excited to jump in, so let's do it. What are 2 things that you can't have one without the other? They belong together in your mind. This could be a funny thing or a serious thing, but these have to go together. You can't have one without the other. All right, Joel?
I feel like the first thing that comes to my mind is peanut butter and jelly.
Jackson, what do you think?
Chili and cinnamon rolls.
Pretzels and Coca-Cola. They go so well together. They complement each other.
I think apple pie and ice cream. You can't have apple pie without having ice cream.
I'm going to say chocolate and coffee because I think those are 2 flavors that really work.
I support that.
Mostly great answers. Good job, y'all. Usually when we talk about belonging or fit, we're talking about a group of people. What does it mean to belong to something? Ainsley, tell us what you think.
When I think about belonging to something, I think about really being known and accepted. When I walk in the room, people know my name and I matter there, and they know me and love me for who I am.
When I belong to a place, I feel like I can be an authentic person. I'm real. They know me. I know them.
I'd say when I belong to a place, I feel like there's a spot for me and that everybody knows who I am and what I can do in that space, and that can help what's going on.
Yeah, and we've all talked about this. We've touched on it. It's belonging or fit is more than just how we feel in a space. Being able to be us and knowing that people care about us. We fit there. It's like home. But it's also that we bring something to the table that's not there without us. We have a role to play, right? We talked about that. We have a role to play there. We have a purpose in that group. Both of them are equally true, and I think you guys nailed that. Way to go. Do you think that students feel like they belong at Ransom Teens specifically? You can talk about the church more generally, but like, what would make a student feel like they do or they don't belong when it comes to coming to youth group or church? And do you think most students feel like they belong when they come into a new space like Ransom Teens?
When I came to Ransom Teens first, I was just started 6th grade, and it was really scary because there's all these older high schoolers, and and they all obviously knew that what we were doing, and I was lost. I didn't know the games that we were playing, and it just kind of felt like I was the smallest one there, and so I definitely didn't feel like I fit in. But once we got to life group and all of that, I started to know the people who were the same age as me and how they felt about it, and that definitely helped me.
Yeah, I feel like they fit. At the start, it may feel intimidating walking in, seeing how everyone already is there having a close bond with a lot of people, but almost everyone there would let you be their friends. You just have to ask.
Drawing from my own experience, I personally feel like when they first come to teens and don't know what's going on, don't know what they're doing, that it's hard for them to feel like they belong because they see everybody doing everything perfectly and knowing exactly what's going on, and they don't feel like they belong because of that. And so reaching out to them and making them feel like they belong is something I prioritize because I've felt the same way before.
So imagine that you walk in to Ransom Teens, you're not a Christian, and you don't know anybody there.
I think that would just feel like you're so different, and I think you can belong somewhere and be different, but I think it's the part of being accepted and being known, because we can be different and we can still belong somewhere. But when you come in and you feel like you're different and you're not accepted, you're not known, I think it would just feel really intimidating. And I know I've gone into places where I feel like I don't belong here, or no one knows my name. And I think it's really scary and really hard.
If you could say something specifically to that student who walked in the door, they had so much courage and they came tonight. If you could encourage them, what would you say?
You're amazing that you're here. That's really scary and really hard, but you do matter and you belong here and you belong to God. More than anything, no matter what anyone says or does, you belong to God and He loves you and He accepts you.
Welcome. My name's Hannah. Great to meet you. I want to know more about you. And I just want to say, being the new person's hard. You're valid in that. And we see you and we want to know you. And you belong here. Welcome home. Welcome to Ransom Teens family. We're glad you're here.
It's everybody's first time here at Ransom Teens sometime. So we've all felt the way that you feel, and I'm glad you're still here, you're still coming, and over time, when we get into life groups, it'll be easier for you to meet new people and just feel more like you belong.
I would say 1, you're brave for coming. Thanks for coming. Keep coming. 2, we're sorry if we've messed it up. If you've come and you've felt let down by us, we're sorry. And 3, keep being brave. Keep coming. Somebody will bump into you. You will make a friend eventually, and you do belong here. Whether you felt like that or whether you haven't, you absolutely belong here. And we're really excited to jump into the teaching for tonight. So thanks for coming. We're excited you're here. Let's go.
Cool. Man, wow. Whew, sweating. All right. Last week, Hannah taught us in our series that there are some doubts that students go through. And we're working through this book called 3 Big Questions That Change Every Teenager. And they did this huge survey across all the U.S., asked students what are the biggest questions that they're facing and the biggest doubts that they have. And last week, we talked about the first question in that group, who am I? And this week, we're jumping into the second question, where do I fit? That's the question. That's the doubt that I don't fit or that I don't fit in the church. And that doubt is all about where we belong. So let me define it for you really quick. We belong when we're with those who really know us, who understand us and accept us for who we are. This includes places where you feel safe to be you, where you share some characteristic or interest, where you feel needed to accomplish something significant. You bring something to the table that nobody else brings, okay? So when describing this belonging, or when you know you fit, one high schooler said this: it's like not having to be fake around certain people, because if you're being fake, that's not where you belong, you know? I think that's well said. It's like not having to be fake. It's like being at home. It's like being with people who understand you. Those are the places you fit. But I highly doubt that with that definition, that most people's first thought is, that's the church. That's what the church sounds like to me. A place where I absolutely belong. I can totally be myself and nobody will judge me there. Instead, they may think of an online group they belong to, some specific friend group they have, a sports team, maybe their family. Did you know that in this book, they found that people in Generation Z, that's 6 to 24-year-olds, your age group, they said 40% of them felt lonely often or very often. 40%, that's almost half. And loneliness happens when you don't belong, when you don't feel understood. And can I just be honest, like, when I read that, I kind of breezed over it, like, oh, it's just another stat. Okay, 40% of students, like, they feel lonely often or very often. Who cares? But then I thought about it, and I know what it's like to feel lonely, and I know what it's like to feel like I don't belong or not to fit, and to think that half of you, almost half of you, feel that often or very often, and people in your school feel the same way, that, like, kind of hit me. Like people who come here, who we think we're connecting with, laughing with, hanging out with, building relationships with, they go home and still feel misunderstood and completely unseen. And not just some of the time, a lot. It hurts my heart. And if you guys know what it's like to feel lonely, it should bother you too. All right. So, big reveal. All right, sorry, Kelsey, I can't do the magician thing. Okay, is that cool? All right, when I was thinking about fit and belonging, wouldn't you know it, I thought about this little game that my daughters play all the time, okay? Sometimes your kids get, toys that are fun, and sometimes they get toys that are annoying. This toy is annoying, but I did not know that God was teaching me a lesson when I watched them playing with it. So, they have this little bus, okay, it turns on, it makes all sorts of really obnoxious sounds. I'm not going to play it for you on this particular, okay. What I meant to say is I'm going to play it for you really quick, because why wouldn't I? Oh, dang. Sad days. Oh, there you go. Trying to get it on the speaker. Yeah. Okay, I'm going to shut it off now. Okay. All right. You get the point. In this game, okay, the point of the game is this. They take these little animals out of the back of the bus, and then they have these little cutouts that match these figures on the side, all right? So, like, it's pretty simple for people with brains, okay, that have been around for a while. Green frog, hole. Put it in there. Fits perfectly. I know. I'm really smart. But if you're not 31 years old like me, and you can't figure this out, you're like my daughters, you're trying to figure it out, and I watch them try to fit these little things in these holes, right? And they may put the wrong color with the wrong thing, so they put like the pink ram and they'll try to put it in the orange cow. Not gonna work, right? Not gonna happen, it's not a thing, it's a total bummer, all right? Or they got a little smarter and they started to recognize that the colors went with the colors, and so they would know it goes right here, but they'd kind of get it backwards. And I watch my daughters get so frustrated when they just can't make this thing fit. They will scream and they will yell and they will be obnoxious about it not fitting. And what they really need in those moments is just for me to come alongside of them, flip it around, maybe just get it started a little bit, and then they're so pumped about it. Like, oh my gosh, it fit. My dad's a genius, I know. It's really easy to impress your daughters, okay? But they get so frustrated, and I watch them try to make these things fit when they just won't fit, and they don't understand. So they'll push harder, they'll try harder, they'll work harder, they'll shove it further in, and it never works. Now, what did that teach me about God? And what did it teach me about you guys? Could be. One of the reasons I love to work with teenagers is this. Amen. Okay. One of the reasons why I love to work with teenagers is this. You guys, when I watch you guys navigate the world, I will watch you try so many things to make yourself fit. You'll try things you don't even like just to see if maybe you do like them, even though you know you don't. You'll hang out with people that you know you have no business hanging around because you don't know where you fit. Who are my friends really? Who's really going to be there for me when I'm struggling? It's like you guys take your life and you try to fit it in just the right spot. And sometimes I watch you get so frustrated when you just can't make it fit the way that you want to. When you don't get the answers you want to, you don't find the people that you want to, you don't understand, and you wouldn't even say that this is the problem. But I've watched it for years, and I watch students trying to find their place in the world and their place in the church, and it just doesn't quite fit. And I would like to pretend you're not like my daughters, but sometimes I see you get so frustrated. You get so stressed and so frustrated trying to make your life work, and it just doesn't really work. And what you need in those moments is not for me to come along and tell you, this is exactly how you should live your life. Do this, do that. What you really need is for Jesus to come along and teach you what's true about you and where you belong. So if you're a student here tonight, maybe doubting just how much you belong in the church or to this group at Ransom Teens, let's look to Jesus to teach us what's true. God's answer to the question, where do I fit or where do I belong, can be summed up in one word. You ready? It's going to blow your mind. With. Can you say that word? With. All right. When you struggle with doubt related to where you belong, I want you to remember two things. Number one, you belong with God. That's what the pastor's supposed to say. But Deuteronomy 31:6-8 says this, be strong and courageous. Don't be afraid and don't panic before them, for the Lord your God will personally go ahead of you. He will not fail you nor abandon you. God's love for you is unconditional. That means that you can't earn it, you can't lose it. He's always with you every minute of every single day, even in the loneliest of moments that you experience. God is with you, and you belong with God. Whether or not people get you, they understand you, your personality, your likes and your dislikes, you belong with God. He's always there, always willing to talk, always loving you. So that's one, you belong with God. Number two, you belong with God's people. Hebrews 10:24-25 says, let us think of ways to motivate one another towards acts of love and good works. And let us not neglect meeting together, as some people do, but encourage one another, especially now that the day of Jesus' return is drawing near. At the end of the Gospel of John, which we talked about last week or a couple weeks ago, did you know that Jesus actually takes a moment and he prays in the only time in the Bible where he prays for those who will follow him later, okay? He says a prayer and he says that this is for the people that will end up being Christians later on. This is a time where Jesus literally prays for you and for me, and it's the only time he does this. Do you know what he prays for? He could pray for anything for us. He could pray for bravery. He could pray for huge faith. Instead, what he prays for us is unity, which is kind of a funny word. But he prays for us to be together, to love one another, to care for one another. You belong with God's people in unity, loving and caring for one another, just like God does for us. So let me tell you, if you doubt that you fit in the church, you're not wrong for feeling that, but God's word says that you do. You belong with God and you belong with God's people. And if you want to grow in your faith, but you think you can do that outside of the church, on your own, all by yourself, I'm just going to tell you, I think you're wrong. It's not the way that God intended you to grow. He intends you to grow in community. So, you belong with God. You belong with God's people. As you go in small groups tonight, be excited to keep processing what that means and what that looks like for you.